Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. I'm very, very excited today to have Stök joining. Stök was one of my first inspirations for content creation. I first became aware of Stök leading up to B-Sides San Francisco back in 2019. He was documenting on video going to the live hacking event and going to B-Sides San Francisco. And so I kind of got interested and followed him since then and had the opportunity, honored to meet during the Bug Crowd Bug Bash in 2019, right before Black Hat and DEF CON. And one thing I can say for sure is he's even more awesome in person than on video. But like I said, he was like one of my first inspirations, because at the same time I was following his journey on bug bounty. I was kind of interested in it because I was a Bug Crowd ambassador and really got interested in that area. So this can be a great conversation. A lot of the conversations we have are mainly technical, but one of the things that Stök has his amazing background as a creator. He goes beyond. Just looking at his videos are just not boring, although there's a lot of value to just the technical stuff, but he does a lot of fun stuff too. And just the quality of video he produces, he really knows what he's doing. He's not an amateur when it comes to content creation. So welcome to the show.
Amazing. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on your show today. Yes. Wow. It's a while ago, 2019. Yes. Right?
Yes.
Good times. I still do bounties. I still do hacking. I do all those things, but I do them recreationally because even though, some people say like, yeah, bounties is shit, whatever. But the thing is that it's the most lucrative and most fun hobby that I ever had that actually paid for itself because I'm into snowboarding, skateboarding, traveling, van life, and all that kind of stuff that I love to do. But that costs a lot of money. And hacking stuff doesn't. It pays for it. So I can do all this other stuff due to the fact that I hack recreationally every now and then and found bugs and have a good time. Winning.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always good to see people making money and just, seeing some of the others out there that have done pretty well too. NahamSec has done pretty well with bug bounty, just seeing what people are able to do with it. I mean, it just almost at times from just, someone observing, it seems to be almost impossible to be able to make that kind of money. But I guess a lot of it all depends on the level of effort and time you put into it.
Exactly. And I understand that it takes time, of course, and there's all these different kind of approaches to it. Let's say that it's not a get money quick kind of scheme. It doesn't work that way. It's a more of a, how do you say it? It's more of a love affair. Where you dig into the whole situation, where you're looking into the target and you're starting to understand how it works, and then you deepen your knowledge, and it's almost like watching any kind of like TV series. Like the first time you decide to look at a new TV set or any of these streaming platforms, do you go for one? And I want to ask you now, what is your preference? Would you look at the image that's going to be on top of it, or would you go for like, yeah, it seems like a high IMDb, or it seems like it has some kind of like many seasons? Where's your preference? What do you go for?
For me, it's more like something that catches my interest.
And how does that happen?
It could be the description, or sometimes it could be just the artwork that they use for the cover art for that series.
Okay, cool. So you're being sucked in by something. And for me, that's the same feeling when I approach hacking. The only difference thing is that if I want to choose a TV series, I want to fall in love with it. I want to spend some time. I want to learn the characters. So one of those that it's a brand new series. You get a new episode every week. That doesn't do it for me. I want to have one of those that's been either running for a long time, like 10 or 15 seasons. Those are the best ones because then you know that it's been invested in and you can follow the characters over time. So same goes for hacking. If you're approaching a new target and it's been out just recently, all it has is a nice fancy image and that's about it. it's not going to be a lot of features in there. So I like to approach it like I do in my TV series. I dig into it. I watch the pilot. I'm trying to figure out, is this something I like? Maybe, afterwards I go into some fan-based stuff or checking up on IMDb if I like it, learning some stuff about it. Same goes for that. You dig into the documentation, signing up for a couple of user accounts, and then you start exploring the app. And that's kind of how it works. And then suddenly, season 1 is over. A cliffhanger. Season 2 begins. Now you're into it, so you can't really just let that go. You're hungry now. So now you're like, okay, I'm just going to binge second season, and then you're all into it, and you're really loving it, and you're learning more and more. And then season 3 comes. And season 3, that's always crappy. This is the area where either these things survive or die. But then suddenly in the middle, you realize, because you've been watching this series for a while now and you're invested. Same goes for approaching this application. You know the functions, you know the features. Now some developer decides to implement some kind of AI functionality that you didn't know about in a chat box, but it's not publicly available yet. But since you're using, like, say, Burp or some other tool, you're looking for the traffic back and forth, suddenly something, it's a bit off. Bit of an anomaly, something just doesn't feel right. And that is the spider sense. The spider sense that something is not the correct way it is. That's where you pivot and find the really cool stuff, because nobody else stuck around long enough to find that. But you have now the invested time, you know how it works, and you're digging in deeper into it.
So before you got into bug bounty, what was kind of your technical background? Did you have any experience with hacking or security or IT?
Yeah, I've been in this. I mean, it seemed like I woke up one day and got on the YouTubes, and then suddenly just voila, created some kind of hacking content. People like, you're a noob, you have no idea what you're doing. Well, the fact is that I started this industry in the mid-90s. I'm old. So I've been into consultancy and hardening and pen testing and infrastructure design and all that kind of stuff since the mid-90s. Then it was Windows NT, and there were networking and Novell and all that kind of stuff. So I've been into infrastructure, and they're following along with, in the mid 2013, 2014, I moved to Bali, and then I worked remote, and then you can access like everything. And, all these startup companies are starting to blow up. And so I've been in the industry for longer than I like to kind of admit, but I never really hacked web. So because I was an infrastructure guy, and I did all this Active Directory hardening and enterprise building data centers and certain stuff. So for me, that was like understanding of core networking and scaling infrastructure. So when I started to hack web, that was a new thing for me. And obviously I needed to learn, because I didn't know shit about JavaScript, because I never had to. I was a deep into PowerScript and Bash kind of guy. So it was a different kind of aspect to approach. So I definitely fell in love with web hacking somewhere around 2017. I use Burp on a daily basis. I love it. I poke at stuff, figure things out, make some bucks here and there, and have a good time.
Yeah, it's kind of the way I started out. So I was in application security before I got into pen testing, before that network security, and spent like 6 years as a sysadmin before I got in. So I used to be a CNE, NetWare, Novell NetWare CNE, MCSE and a CCNA back in the day. So that's one of the things too, I think it's important to share, because that kind of gives a level set of your background. Although you did have a technical background, it is kind of a different animal learning web app compared to
it's way different.
The network. So that kind of shows in level sets, because I know a lot of people, kind of need to know the background of the person, how were they so successful, but you did have a technical background, but you didn't work in that area. So you learned something brand new. So that kind of shows people.
I had to.
Yeah. Yeah. So what got you interested in bug bounty?
Say again?
What got you interested in bug bounty?
Long story short, I more or less social engineered myself into a live hacking event in Vegas during DEF CON 2017. I was there because I was doing infrastructure stuff, and I was there to, watch talks and do all that kind of stuff. I wasn't hacking at that time. So I got in there, and I have a friend that I met. His name is Franz Rosen. And since we're Swedes, we were like, yeah, we're cool, we're friends and all. It wasn't that heavily invested into, he didn't fully understand who I was or back and forth. It's not that we've been friends since day one. It's just that we stumbled upon each other and we realized that we like spending time together, and he was cool. And he said, I'm going to this live hacking event. It's called Bug Bounties. And he started to talk about that. And I'm like, shit, that's too cool. I want to be a part of that. So I asked him, like, hey, is there any way to get in? It's like, no, you can't do it. But eventually I managed to get a meeting with Ted Kramer, the one that was organizing this kind of stuff in the beginning. And I got invited to hang out in the bar. So obviously I stuck around in the bar. I had a camera with me and I started recording stuff and interviewing people and just having a good time, because I was there to capture content. I was there to do it for me. I wanted to do like a documentary, like a one-person documentary of going to DEF CON for the first time. And that was like the door opener, because that meant that I met people, and I've always been like this social kind of guy. I love people and I love to talk to them and ask them questions so I can learn more cool stuff. And so I was there, had a good time, and I was there for the free drinks, obviously. And then suddenly, there's this dual core playing at this party, and there's an open bar, and there's a pool, and there's all these cool people. I'm like, wow, these guys really living their life. How can I be a part of this? This is for me. This is for me. This is like the thing that I need in my life. And eventually I ended up in Goa with Franz as well during a live hacking event there. And I was there to also like, push the camera and have a good time. And I met Jobert, and I ended up in Jobert is founder of HackerOne, and we ended up in a hotel room. He's sitting on his computer having Burp open. I'm like, can you show me something that hacking? I'll show you some video editing. And he's like, yeah, for sure. And he just showed me some stuff inside Burp. I said, how do you even remotely start? And he said, like, just pick one bug class that you seem like you like, and then you'll learn everything you can about that and go on live targets, try to find that vulnerability. And when you learn enough about that, you can move on to the next one. I'm like, yeah, that seems easy enough. I don't know shit about web, don't know anything about coding. So it's like, how can I identify vulnerabilities if I don't know where they are? But I did understand infrastructure. So I Googled infrastructure kind of bugs and found that it was race conditions. I'm like, I understand that. Time of the talk-to kind of situation. I'm like, cool. I can figure that out. How can I race this? And that was my entry, trying to get like racing the back end and getting requests in and just manipulating data. It's not a really cool bug, but it gave me some bugs. And that was like the starting point. And then I realized that you need to write a report for this. Like, reports are boring. How should I even be able to communicate this? This is a really cool finding. And they're like, nah. And I'm like, but. And I started the skill of understanding how to create rapport in a report, which means that you need to connect with a person and really be good at communicating, because some of my first reports were super shitty because I'm like, bad stuff here, you fix. That was kind of the situation. And I learned that you needed to be very good at communicating, like zero deniability. They had to be able to replicate it without any kind of discussion. You should be able to explain the full impact of how it does, so it doesn't need to get a question coming back to you like, how does this work? Or what is the real impact of this, blah, blah, blah. So I learned to play the bounty game, which is way, way different than compliance. So you need to really escalate to the level that you're not stepping over the boundary, but you also need to find like the best way to explain that without any case that somebody can say, nope, this is not for us. So that's how I eventually like developed a better sense of being better at writing reports. And I've been in this ever since. I mean, being a good communicator is a skill that anyone can learn. And it's so crucial in this technical world. It's very easy to think that we still need people to talk to people.
Yeah, I think it's the soft skills like communication is often overlooked, even outside of report writing. And, some of the writing, sometimes we're in a world so we're used to sending text messages, using acronyms or whatever, not using the full words. And we need to learn to translate that over. And I think it's a little more difficult for the younger generations because when I grew up, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't text and all that. So, but yeah, one of the best things I did in my career, communication wise, two best things I did was when I went back to college. I took an English composition class to learn how to write properly. And then I went to Toastmasters for speaking. So that helped a ton.
There you go. That's it. Going down the Toastmaster route, I deeply would recommend that to anyone, to stand in front of a crowd, to being able to clearly communicate what you're trying to say. And then also, learn storytelling and all that kind of stuff, because that's what I do now. Like, my job is to take extremely complex things, break them down and explain them to people so they fully understand, and help people become better communicators. It's something that you practice. It's not something that you could be born with it, but most of us are really nerds, and we are very focused on the things that we like, and people is just a thing that's in the way. But being able to understand that people are the golden path towards whatever, getting the things that you want. So being able to communicate clearly and without any kind of fuss or over fudding things, I mean, I think that's the successful path moving forward in any kind of work that you do.
I think one of the big values you bring also, because you mentioned the storytelling and be able to explain complex topics where people can understand. But I think another value that you bring is to be able to take something that might be boring to the average person to make it interesting. So if it's interesting, entertaining, people are going to learn more and they're going to pay attention.
Yeah, because most of the friends that I know are either have ADD, ADHD, or on the spectrum. So, I mean, I'm never diverse myself. So my attention span is like 0 goldfish level. If it's not piquing my interest and keeping my attention, I'm like, meh, next. It needs to be something that caters to that kind of like curiosity. I need to understand that there's something more beyond the next kind of ridge, or I will just exit and not look back. So that's why, like, the videos that I created early on were very fast paced, very much info driven to keep people engaged. I boiled down really massive things into 5 minutes to get them. If you look away, you're going to miss something.
Yeah. Before I forget to, since you mentioned dual core, he's actually the episode that comes out next week, Int 80 from dual core. So he was my guest. So that one's coming out next week. So I wanted to make sure to share that with you before I forgot. It was a fun episode.
Cool. Happy to hear it.
So while we're on the subject of content creation, what are some tips you have for people that want to get into content creation?
It depends what kind of content creation. It's content creation. I think more or less everyone should have the skill to light a room, put on a camera, and be able to have a conversation. That's important. Today, in the mobile environment that we're in, that's a differentiator. But when it comes to content creation, it's about finding your niche and finding something that you think is so interesting that when you speak about it, people get passionate about hearing you speak about it. Because if you're doing it for the sake of just trying to create some clout, like if or at least me personally, I need to be passionate about the things that I want to talk about. Otherwise, it just sounds like monotone, very boring. People will not listen. And then you start doing it. That's the biggest and the simplest way to start doing something, is just start. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need that. Start practicing. Start a camera. Talk to it. Learn editing. Learn audio. Learn storytelling. Learn all those things. Because if you do and succeed, I mean, sky's the limit. I mean, content creation has opened so many doors for me that is ridiculous that I didn't know existed, only due to the fact that I one day decided to turn on a camera, record some stuff, and put it on the internet.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what it's done for people to help them build personal brands. I mean, there's some people in the cybersecurity community that were just documenting their journey, and that's kind of how they end up going on to have YouTube channels with lots of subscribers and a very successful career in cybersecurity and bug bounty.
Because this is the secret. Let's say that you wanted to submit a call for paper to a cool conference you want to speak at. Nobody knows who you are. There's a slim chance that call for paper board, that the board is going to look through that, is going to look at your research. But if you are somebody they know that's done great presentations before, actually is a nice person to be around, it's a higher chance that you get accepted. I know this is a biased kind of thing, but that's how it works in real life. People that take some space, share without requesting anything back, just giving out, will most likely receive something in return. So if you're willing to do the work, show up, you're practicing your speaking, or you're writing your stuff and you're sharing things, automatically what's going to happen is that you're going to authority strengthen yourself a bit over the rest of the lot that don't do that. And it's very, very easy to just pivot yourself, like not just one step, but 10 steps, but actually doing the work of sharing the things that you do and you're passionate about. It could be in a written form, it could be a newsletter, it could be something. As long as you provide the value and it's real value. If you say that I have a cool newsletter, you should sign up for it, and then 3 lines and it's an ad and then it's nothing more, then it's you trying to monetize something. And I respect people, I respect the hustle, you should, but I want to learn from somebody because everybody wants to take a shortcut. And if you can provide the shortcut for them to level up their game, then they're willing to buy the certain thing that you're providing to them. But if you don't have that, if you don't have the credibility first, it's going to be hard for you, because either you need to sell things that you don't know. And I mean, like I said, I respect the hustle, but then being able to show yourself on your brand, that's on part of the things you do, that's going to be consistent with you, that's a part of you long term, that's going to help you way more than trying to make the fast route of making some bucks real fast right now, because people see through that. So it's rather like being authentic, sharing the stuff that you do. And if it's half-assed, it's cool too. Don't charge for it. Have fun. And then get people along the way, practice. And that's going to open up the doors, because if you're standing on the stage, you're already authority strengthening yourself way past the rest of the crowd, because they're looking at you. You're telling them certain things. Now they listen to you. Next step, if you talk to somebody after that, shows like, wow, that was a really cool presentation. Be nice, show up, listen to what they say, take any kind of feedback and have a good time, because people are very nice when you do it person to person. On internet, some troll person is going to be really nasty to you because they want to shoot you down for no reason. And that's hard. So I would say, if you really want to share stuff, go to your local meetup. Share stuff there, practice there. Like you said with Toastmasters, like have a group of people that share you on, then take the next step. Because putting stuff on the internet can be, I learned it the hard way, shitty. People did the worst kind of comments, like, I hate the sound of your voice, or why is your hair? I don't like your hair. I don't like you. Get the fuck out. I'm like, okay, but hey, why did you watch my stuff then? It's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, okay. Fine.
It's jealousy.
That's for you to know.
Yeah.
You have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
But that's your opinion, and you're entitled to that. But it's a shitty opinion, and if it's a shitty opinion, maybe you should keep it for yourself.
Yeah. But the good thing is fortunately people don't pay that much attention to those folks. But yeah, it's just jealousy and haters. And I see a lot of women dealing with that, because guys get so insecure that they see that women can do something they can't do. But yeah, it just seems like that's one of the things I see with people with a big following and really strong brands, is there's always some haters that seem to come along with it.
That's it. And you have to accept that. The more people that know who you are, and the more people are going to get exposed to things that you do. And that's hurtful. I mean, it took practice for me. I wasn't media trained in any way or form. And even though a comment on the internet, it's just a comment on the internet, it still hurts. I mean, it still hurts me, because I'm human. I'm a person. You write something, I read it. I'll be sad for a second. And then I need to check, like, okay, so roller coaster guy 73, like, does his opinion matter? No, but it's valid. He's allowed to have it, but it doesn't matter to me. Who are the people in my circle that I listen to? And then you listen to those people.
So kind of along the kind of pivot from connected, but pivot to personal branding. So building a brand, what are your recommendations on building a brand?
Being authentic, find something that makes you stand up from a crowd. Like, I'm having a beanie on, I have long hair, I have sunglasses, I have a nose ring, I'm inside, cyber colors, black, sometimes orange. There's branding colors going through the things that I do. And it's just because people would then see that and be remembered. Like, oh yeah, it's that guy. It's like, yeah, I remember him. If you can't stand up in a crowd, if you go into a conference, like look the way that Jack Resider does, like it's a specific kind of colored Nikes makes him stand out in the crowd. Or there's a specific kind of things that you have that's associated with your brand. And then of course you can have faceless channels and you can do all that. But the thing is that my face and your face, nobody can take that away. They can make some AI copies of it if they want to, but the branding, it's my branding. You can't take that. So owning up to that and just creating your personal brand, I think is a very crucial part. Having your own company and, doing all this kind of side hustle is a good thing if you have the possibility. If you don't, I'm employed, but I also have my own company. I have multiple incomes to make sure that I'm stable no matter what. A personal brand would help with that.
Yeah, and I like that. It helps you stick out because, it's just, if everyone's just the same, then you don't stick out. Sharing those stories, and I do like that you said be authentic, because some people try to come up with personas or they kind of got gimmicks. But, when it comes to gimmicks, one of the things I like to compare it to, because I used to be a professional wrestler, is one of the things that I always told you in professional wrestling, if you had a gimmick, then you had to be that gimmick in public. That way you didn't blow the gimmick, which now they share that pro wrestling is not real. It's, it's all staged, and now they don't have to do that. But at one time people had to stick to that persona. You couldn't leave that persona out in public or you just kind of ruined your career. So I think it's nice I like the fact of people like yourself that are being authentic. It's easier to keep up who you are than if you're trying to pretend to be something else that you're not. Some days you just can't keep that up.
Otherwise, you need to think about you living this fake life. You need to fake the things. Like, okay, I need to get into the mood of being, wait, me? That's who I am. Wherever I go, if it's in a grocery store or if it's in a bar, if it's on a stage, it's the same person. You're going to meet the same person. I'd rather be that than trying to be something that I'm not, because it's going to be problematic the long term for me to just keep, like you said, keeping up the charades. And then if you're like associated with a certain thing, I'm associated with hacking, but that's just one of many, many, many interests that I have. I just moved up north. Like I live in the middle of like nowhere, and I have 5 minutes to a snowboarding slope, and I'm taking up woodworking and doing a lot of other stuff that I love to do. But I don't share that. I don't have to. I could, but I don't. So it's all about, people have so much depth, and judging people by just one thing. Well, okay, cool, you can do that. But having multiple kind of interests is where I find people being very interesting. Like having a conversation with somebody that's like a very 2D kind of similar person. This is what you expect from them. And then I always want to peel off the layers. I want to go on the lower layers of the onion to try to figure out, like, yeah, what makes you tick? Like, you used to be a professional wrestler. Tell me about that time you wrestled that bear. I'm seeing pictures. How does that happen? How did you stage that? That's the kind of conversation that I would like to have in a bar, to learn about like what makes you tick. Or if you wake up way early on a Sunday morning, there's nothing that you should do. What kind of breakfast would you do? Tell me now, Philip.
What kind of breakfast would I do? I don't know. Maybe some oatmeal. I usually eat oatmeal all the time, so maybe some oatmeal.
Would you just have it like plain oatmeal, or would you have a little bit of salt, cinnamon kind of stuff in there, or is it just plain oatmeal?
It would be like, there would be, for me, I like to put butter and some milk because I don't like my oatmeal runny, and add some sugar to it, maybe sometimes some cinnamon and raisins. But I like the plain, the regular oatmeal, not the pre-cooked oatmeal, not the instant oatmeal, because I think the regular oatmeal is a lot better in my opinion.
You see? Already now I know more about your taste. What do you have to it? Would you have coffee, tea, or orange juice? Or any kind of, do you have any beverages that you drink? Mate?
I would have iced tea, or either I would have a glass of milk with my oatmeal.
Impressive. So lactose tolerance is up on the high level, even though you've been around for a while. Well, if I had that, I have the shits for a week. So congratulations on my vegan ass. So, but good stuff. Thank you for sharing that oatmeal experience. Good stuff. Thank you. Now I know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. And that's when you talk about mentioning, getting to know more about people. That's the interesting thing about our community is getting out and knowing people more. One of the things I find that has been enjoyable over the past couple of years is because when you're doing security all the time, it's still okay, but sometimes you like to talk about other things. I mean, you have, some friends that you talk to and all they want to do is talk about the job or security. And there's times you want to talk to other content creators or other podcasters, either talk about, the equipment they're using, some of the interesting guests they've had, their process, even just geeking out over the equipment is always fun. So it's nice to have conversations on other topics outside of what you do in your day job.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that too. And that shows the diversity around us being people. And it's easy to get hung up in like, what kind of tooling are you using? What kind of stuff are you doing? In the end, being able to leverage or use these kind of tools in the right way, it's what sets you apart. So if you're using Katie or Burp or you write your own kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter. In the end, what makes you happy and the things that you want to do and what you're poking at, that is where you're going to grow your skills. So if you're new and you want to get into hacking, no, you don't need to run Arch, Linux, or Kali. You can get along with any kind of box that you want to learn. There's all these different ways for you to dig into it, but find a niche of something they find it's interesting. Learn that tools. Like if you're really good at using a hammer, then wow, good riddance. Then you can hit nails. If you end up meeting a screw, that's going to be a bit of a challenge because now you need to learn another skill set. But there's everything is for everyone, and they're similar. You need to figure things out and just dig deeper into it. So I definitely see myself as a connoisseur when it comes to learning new things and being curious. I know you're too. That's why you asked the question, what kind of tooling you're using and what kind of camera or podcasting. How do you deal with your audience? What kind of audio do you? And the thing is that in the end, none of that matter unless you're willing to use them in the right way and just engaging with. You don't need all the fancy stuff, but it's important to at least, stick to one, learn it good enough, then move on to the next, and then, being open to new ideas and don't be too locked into using a certain kind of thing, unless it's like you really want to use a Nikon camera or there are certain kind of brands. People tend to nerd into those. I'm a Burton kind of snowboarder guy. So I don't leave those. It's about taste in the end. And taste, well, that's a different kind of story.
Yeah. And so one of the things you'd mentioned, your snowboarding and stuff. So how these extra activities, does it help you de-stress from the stresses of your day job?
100%. I have to have them. For me, it's the balance, the contrasts is what I need. I need to be bored. Seriously, I need to be bored for me to find the catalyst of creating stuff. If I'm too excited about things all the time, I don't create stuff. But if I'm bored and I challenge myself to be that, then, things happen. Or I'll just mentally exercise by using, I'm out chopping wood, I'm working with my body, I'm repairing stuff and learning about things that I need to do that's way away from my computer screen. That gives me presence in life, mindfulness, hippie shit. But it works for me.
Yeah. Seems really important just to be able to disconnect, because sometimes when you're always thinking about it, and one of the examples I like to compare it to was when I was going through the OSCP exam. When you're on that exam and you sit there and you don't take breaks, then you just kind of get a mind block and you really can't move on past that. But you get away from it for 15, 30 minutes, then you're able to come back with a fresh mind and help solve that issue. So it just seems to be kind of the same way for me when it comes to work related or technical related stuff. I have to disconnect sometimes.
And you can ask almost like any hacker that performs like live hacking events or highly competitive hacking, that stepping away from the computer, getting in a shower, having that bit of a liquid sleep, as Miguel would say it, and then relaxing a bit, doing something else. That's where you'll get these epiphany moments where you're like, yes. Then the dots just fell together, and then you get back to it and you solve it. So having those breaks where you do certain things, and I do those for a bit longer periods. I might just be hacking or digging into something or doing something like content creation stuff for a long period, then I don't do it at all. And I know that's not really working for everyone, because some people need to keep that momentum. I do realize that the longer I stay away for certain things, it's hard to get back into it, because the hurdle of starting doing things just grows and it gets really sketch, and you're like, nah, maybe I shouldn't do it. And then you have to force yourself into doing said thing, and then old dams just get released and it feels good to get into it again. But having those reminders and making sure that you schedule your time, I hate scheduling my time, but being able to set off things, maybe I should focus on a certain thing. I put it in my calendar. I hate it to put it in, but it's a great reminder when I look at it. In 3 days, I'm going to do that thing. Then I mentally prepare myself without thinking about it for that said thing that I'm going to do. So when I wake up that morning, I'm amped for it. Then I'm ready to get into that writing or working on that script or paying those bills or whatever thing that I need to do. So it's a bit of that self-help kind of thing. I need to remind myself. It has to do with my neurodiversity brain and constant procrastination. But then on the other side, I have immense amount of hyper-focused where I can be extremely interested in certain things for a very long time. So it's a balance.
Yeah. So I know we'll probably have a lot of folks watching the podcast that are wanting to get started in bug bounty. So I think it'd be a missed opportunity if I didn't ask you your advice for someone wanting to get started in bug bounty.
Sure. I mean, I would love to share any kind of advice when it comes to starting in bug bounties. I would say primarily what you need to do is to sign up for any kind of platform that you like, and because they provide programs for you to hack on. Get access to any kind of proxy. It could be Burp, KDO, whatever you like to do, and just start running that in the back. Like have that walk on web pages, look at stuff, preferably stick inside the scope. Like look at the target. Let's say that you're entering Bugcrowd or HackerOne or Integrity or Yes We Hack, whatever, some of the bigger players. Look in there. If there's a site that you find interesting, maybe it's one of those that you use more or less on a daily basis. Maybe it's an e-commerce site, maybe something else. Log in there, just walk the site, look at the traffic going through, starting to identify how these calls work inside and out. And then start to see if there's any kind of interesting stuff happening. And when I say interesting stuff, it's maybe there's IDORs. What happens if I log in with this user? Can I access that with this other user token too? Or is there any way for me to just input things in a field that get reflected in a certain way? Or is there a way for me to generate like an error inside this website by throwing characters at it so it generates a 400 or 500 error, because then it couldn't parse or deal with it? That's like indicators of things that are going to be broken. Because if you're beginning and doing bug bounties, it's no idea for you to go straight into the automation. Automation is for people that are extremely skilled and can do that at scale, because it's a numbers game. You need to, like the fastest person that identified these vulnerabilities is the one that's going to submit it. The rest of them, it's like if you had let's imagine for a second that you're out walking and it's mosquitoes following you. It's not only one mosquito, it's 50 mosquitoes. You're running faster and it's behind you, and you open the door and then you get through it and you slam the door. One darn mosquito gets in, the rest of them is like hitting the window glass, but that's the dupes. Those are the ones that are not getting paid. The one that got in, he's going to be lucky tonight. That's kind of the approach you need to realize, that it's a high stake, high speed numbers game when you go into automation. And you should automate everything. If it's possible for you to automate it, because when one of your scans is running and giving you data, then you can look at the anomalies and poke into it and go deeper. So I use automation, but I use it as an aid for myself to do the boring, mundane tasks. And then I'll dig deeper into what goes on. And I read the documentation. I dig into the log files. I try to understand how it works. I look for dependencies, and just deep dive, fall in love with the app to see if I find anything that's a bug. But I also spend a lot of interest in trying to understand what are valuable for this target. Because let's say that we'll do a friendly GDPR kind of situation here. Let's say, for instance, Uber. If you were able to find the email address of a driver at Uber, that would be a very bad PII finding for them, because they obviously don't want the email addresses of their drivers to be able to be identified, because then somebody could be an ass to them. But if you find an email address of a user over at SendGrid or MailChimp or whatever, then it's their business. They work with emails. It's not a sensitive information. Both are emails, but in different contexts mean different kind of risks for them. One is the accepted risk, the other one is really bad. So you need to understand what the target wants, what's interesting to them. Is it financial loss, or is it a way for you to get access to systems they aren't supposed to? With that knowledge in mind, like preparing yourself to go into that, then having a attacker's mindset and approaching it and seeing what are the things that I'm not supposed to find here? What are the things that they really, really worked hard on trying to make me not to be able to access? And if you're able to access those as an admin, then you try to do that as low possible privilege user. You just step back every step on all these users to find the lowest privileged kind of user you have. Then it's a low user, have a high user access probability to execute this problem. Undeniable. Shouldn't happen. And if it's unauthenticated, that's the best. So that's the way that I approach it. I try to find vulnerabilities as a high user, then scale down to the lowest user to provide maximum impact and be very clear on how I write that inside the report. And I compare it to the documentation. Look through the documentation. Am I supposed to do that? If it says no and I'm able to do it, then here's your case. Like there's no discussion. It says in documentation, you shouldn't be able to do that. Can still do it. I'm winning.
Very cool. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't discuss?
You can't say that. That's unfair. It's like, is there anything that you want to talk about in the world? All of it. Now I
just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm good. I had a good conversation. Thank you for listening in and hearing me rant about things. I've had a long day, so I'm happy that I could get on and just rant a bit. And thank you for having me. I'm very happy that I was here.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Was allowed to be
I appreciate it. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. It's always great to chat with you. It was nice seeing you at DEF CON. We didn't get to speak long, so it was kind of good to get to kind of talk and catch up here. You know, one of the goals of this podcast is not only to share the technology. There's a lot of cool people in the community like yourself that I like to share because we, you know, bug bounty and the cybersecurity community, we've got a community that's better than any other, I think, because being in powerlifting before, I used to be part of the physical fitness community and powerlifting community, and just the kind of connections and stuff I've made here is just awesome. Get to learn a lot, meet some really great people along the way.
Well, I'm happy that you're having the show because that means that you're enabling more people, and I'm grateful to be a part of that journey. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for being part of it. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.